Hello, everyone. I am here with Kellie, who is really has an interesting business helping us to be happier because I think that's what we all want, even when we're pursuing, like, make more money. It's really with the goal of we want to be happier, right? So, really excited to hear more about how Kellie helps with that. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I was so intrigued by this phrase of applied behavioral happiness
Mhm.
because I've heard that sort of clinical term, but I haven't heard it applied to happiness. So I want to hear all about what that means.
Absolutely. So, what I was trained in is behavior analysis. How do we go through and figure out why things are happening? What's causing them to continue? Let's really break down how these behaviors have got put together and why they continue the way they are, or why aren't they happening? Or why, when we start doing something like a new habit, it doesn't continue and it ends up falling apart. And looking at that and going, okay, like you said, everyone is looking for, how do I fulfill my values? How do I make sure that I'm reaching my full potential? How do I have happiness in my life? And for me and the work that I do, happiness doesn't mean, bright smiles all the time, but that contentment, even in the moments of grief, and knowing that even in those difficult times, we are going to be okay and we can find happiness in those moments too. So a lot of what I do is working with challenging behavior with kids, and then I spend time with adults talking on the business side. How do we make sure we're speaking through our values day to day through our business and through our life?
After this, I will take a break and play games with you.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
you work with a lot of
goodness.
kids, you say?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Changes in routines affect behavior a lot. So it's just a part of life that we go through, especially this time of
Absolutely.
year
I am
when there's
live
so
on
many
YouTube
things
right
going
now.
on.
I'm on YouTube right now. So can we pause the questions for later?
I did that.
Yes, you did that. Can you guys not be in here, please? Just for a little bit. Oh, live shows are so fun.
They are. You know what? You just got to take everything as it's just something to add a little extra.
So for me, I have struggled a lot with clinical depression.
Mhm.
And it really came to a head when I was pregnant. I didn't get really postpartum. I got like instant perinatal, like as soon as I was pregnant, those hormones really messed with my brain and
Mhm.
my thought processes. So I'm curious to know how you can use something like this behavior analysis to
Mhm.
affect, to not um, become subsumed by those thoughts that are coming from hormones.
Absolutely. So if we start talking on the clinical side, so we've got sort of the coaching side of how we can use behavior analysis. Hey, let's make an improvement here. Let's work on this there. Then we've got the clinical side. Hey, I've got something a bit more meaty that I want to work on. Then we're going to be talking acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a part of behavior analysis. What they did was they took, this is the science of behavior, why behaviors occur, why they continue, why they don't occur, why they don't continue. How do we take that and apply it to mindfulness? How do we take that and apply it to treating severe anxiety, suicidal ideation, depression, all those different things? And what we're looking at here is at the very beginning, let's recognize that these behaviors may be something that continues with us and learn to make a friend with them instead of trying to constantly push them out. So
Mm,
often what we're looking at in the beginning is, can I just see this intrusive thought? Can I just see this repetitive behavior? Can I just see this pattern and not hurt myself for having experienced it and add to that? Just see it to begin and then go from there.
mm. Well, let's pivot back to the business side of things
Certainly.
because we are mostly speaking to online coaches supporting clients with things like mindset.
Mhm.
How do you work with people like that to help their businesses?
Absolutely. So I usually work on the supervision side. So I'll be working with new professionals that are looking at getting to a helping field, want to have that mindfulness aspect, want to have some behavior analysis mixed in. They're looking at behavior analysis specifically to business. We'll be talking organizational behavior analysis, where we're going through and focusing on how do we work on behavior in groups? How does being within a business versus at home change how we act? All those different things. So often I'll be working with people who are new in the field and who are going into larger companies. Like their goal is to be a part of a larger team. And
Okay.
it looks at how do we make sure that you're going to be able to supervise somebody effectively? How do we give feedback effectively? All those different skills that have so many tiny behavioral components. When you experience somebody who's exceptional at it, you know it, but you may not know why. My
Mm,
job is to help figure out that why.
okay. So this is a great skill for leaders or people who really aspire to be leaders to help understand
Absolutely.
the people they're working with and help bring out the best in them.
If anybody's looking for, hey, this sounds interesting, I really want to dig into this a little bit, any OBM, organizational behavior management book, is going to be this sort of vein of what I'm talking about here. So that'd be the direction I'd go
Mm.
for a little bit more.
Okay, so that's not
Like,
online business manager.
yeah, not in this case, but Lord knows for every set of letters, there are a million different things it could be.
Yes, especially in clinical fields.
Yes, absolutely.
So what is your background? How did you come to be doing this kind of work?
Yeah, it's sort of a funny little hop, skip, and jump that got me here. So I started going, hey, I really want to be involved in ranching. I really want to be working on the family ranch, raising cattle, raising goats, training horses, the whole 9 yards. To make a long story super short, it didn't end up working out exactly as I'd hoped. So I'm okay. What is my next step here? And I got into a position where I was working at a rescue ranch, but with groups of people. So I was supporting therapists who are working with group homes and social workers who are working with veterans. And then they gave me a group and said, okay, you're in charge of this group of kids who have different special needs. And I went, what? This is fantastic. The families were amazing. The kids were unbelievable. And I just didn't feel qualified. So I went, okay, I need to feel qualified. I need to feel like I am providing a product that is worthy for these amazing families that are working so hard for these kids and all of these kids that are working so hard for themselves. And I got into behavior analysis, just sort of fell right in. Now I've made it sort of full circle and I'm starting to work with kids on my own little farm and it's been really, really cool.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. So you work with a number of different kind of groups of people.
absolutely.
Do you have a favorite to work with?
It depends on the skill set. So if we're talking about like big tantrums and meltdowns, I love toddlers because they're just so deep into those really big emotions in such small bodies. Just so much feeling. And having that
Very
farm
much.
setting, oh yeah, having that farm setting where we can go, okay, this is too big for a room. How about 15 acres? Is this emotion too big for that? Like let's get you out where there's some room for this. And we can work through stuff surprisingly quickly. For example, kids that parents came to me and said, hey, we'd really like to take a vacation someday to Disneyland and not have it be the worst experience ever. But in the meantime, if we could go to a restaurant and sit down for 10 minutes and also have that not be the worst experience ever, that'd be a great first step. To 3 months later, they're taking that dream vacation and they come back having enjoyed it instead of coming back wishing they hadn't spent the money on it, wishing they hadn't gone. And those changes are just so cool. And then again, if we're talking on the professionals, often new professionals that are looking at how do I really jump into this with a good foot, that's where I'm going to be. And then in between, I work with a lot of parents, a lot of trauma situations where we go, hey, the way I was parented is not the way I want to parent. How do I make that change? How do I shift from those patterns of behavior that are generational and turn it into something new that fits what I want to do and passes a new legacy on?
Yeah, well, that's very important work. Do you have a definition of happiness that you use for yourself and your clients?
Mhm. For me, it is allowing every emotion.
Mm.
which sounds like, wait a minute, how is that happiness? Well, happy could be, the little emotion, the smile, the giggle, the joy, all those different things. But if I can allow myself to feel full grief, full despair, and not be consumed by it, just feel it, that's when I know I've achieved happiness from my perspective. I know that I can feel rage and go, that's rage. Huh. I don't really want to be there right now, but I can feel it and I can see it. Okay. I can work through this. That is an overwhelming, overarching happiness and the greater goal for myself and many of my clients.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Hey, it's daily work. I'm not going to say like, oh yes, and I have achieved it. No.
You're done. Check.
Daily work. Yeah. If only life were done in check and we could keep going. That's just not how it is.
Yeah. So what is a good first step if people want to learn more about the work that you do and maybe getting started with you?
Sure, sure. So on my website, appliedbehavioralhappiness.com, there are red request appointment buttons all over it. Any of those, you can get a free discovery call with me for 30 minutes. If you want to talk professional, back and forth, and just, hey, I just want to chit chat. This sounds cool. Or if you've got a friend or yourself where you're going, man, this could be a service I could use some support on. I've got a friend or I myself are working through some really tough tantrums and meltdowns. If only I just had a vetted resource library. Great. Let me take you to it. There's a
Mm.
lot of different ways that I can help, and I'm happy to take 30 minutes with anybody.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, now I'm thinking about, I bet that the mother guilt is probably one that comes up, and
Absolutely.
especially in that intersection between children and professional life,
Mm,
um, and how much we're kind of projecting onto our children when we feel this guilt of like, well, I love working. I didn't actually want to stay home all the time and be your playmate.
absolutely. Absolutely. So often what I'll do when we've got a big overarching label for a set of different thoughts, like mom guilt, there's so many different thoughts that can come under that.
Mm.
We'll talk about it's the mom guilt radio show, and sometimes it plays, and sometimes I can't turn the volume down, but I can recognize it as the radio show, not as me. So, for example, one that a lot of the kids that I work with will come to is like, that's doom radio, or that's, that's scarystuff.com is just playing in the background. I've got this intrusive thought, this intrusive feeling. Wait a minute. I know what this is. I know what category it falls into. And now that I've got it, a little bit of space, it's not on top of me. It's not all of me. I've got a little space from it. I can start using my coping skills to work through this moment. Yes,
Mm.
mom guilt is huge, especially in a post-COVID world where so many people were at home so much and now they're not home as much, or there is any separation when before there was none. It is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling that. I tried to get some work done yesterday, even though it was Sunday, but that did not happen. I played video games with my 6-year-old for 8 hours.
And that can be delightful.
It was very fun. We all like video
Good.
games, but there was that nagging feeling of, oh, I had something needed to get done, but also, you can't get this time back, and that sort of debate back and forth in
Sure.
one's head.
Yeah, the prioritizing of values and looking at how do these values relate to each other given different contexts, and how do I figure out in this context which to choose, and then later recognize guilt radio may start playing no matter what I choose. There's no escaping good old guilt radio. Eventually, as we acknowledge it, it will get a little quieter.
Very nice. Are there any last thoughts that you would like to impart? A little advice about finding happiness or being more happy in our daily lives?
Absolutely. So when somebody comes to me and they're asking like I'm just not happy period. I just don't feel happiness. I feel discontent and everything. What we start looking at first are what are the setting events. In behavior analysis, a setting event is kind of like a rainbow or a cloud. Like a rainbow is something that sits over everything, every trigger, every behavior, every consequence of my choices. And it just makes everything feel a little bit better. Like no matter what, I'm kind of on a cloud. And then those rain clouds, no matter what happens, no matter what triggers come, behaviors come, consequences of those behaviors, it just feels icky. If I can figure out what some of those are, and often it comes down to nutrition or sleep or, exercise, all those different things. Or it's that time of year where I had a loved one pass away. And I may not have realized it, but my body kept that score. And so everything's a little bit off. Finding those setting events first is going to help you make some big steps.
Nice. Yes. That is such a cool metaphor. And it's interesting to think about the rainbow being that positive kind of tint to everything and finding those triggers too.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like having a toolbox of I can pull out this once I know this triggers that sense of contentment in me.
Yes, I found a lot of success, and I've seen a number of people use this as well, going through and just snapping a picture when you feel that contentment. Because you may not see it in the moment, you may not see that pattern in the moment, but in the long run, you may be able to pull it out from all those pictures.
We have A&A Studios saying hello in the comments. They do Lego builds. So I feel like very appropriate when we're talking about kids and kind of bonding and finding those happy moments. That is something, building with Legos with my kids is something that I really like to do because it's like satisfying to me and fun for them.
Absolutely. I was just talking to a therapist that specializes in Lego-based therapies this morning. What an amazing tool. I've used it a couple of times in role play. Like if we're going through almost like a tabletop role play game where we can talk about things that are more tough to talk about if it's a real situation. If we do it in this setting, we can have a time of going through it, and having the Legos to build that setting can really help have some tough conversations and get into places we may not be able to otherwise.
Yeah, definitely see that.
Plus, Legos are awesome. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Legos and magnet tiles. Whew.
Yes. Yeah, there's a reason I'm subscribed to you, A&A. Well, I will wrap things up there, and I just want to say a big thank you for coming and talking to us about this really important topic, finding happiness, contentment, the ability to feel okay, at least in our lives, is just crucial. It's the
Absolutely.
underpinning of everything. So,
Thank you so much for having me.
absolutely, it is a pleasure. All right, bye bye, everyone.